myself the whole time. Man, listen, the truth of today with our team was that they found a way to grind and win another very difficult, pretty evenly matched game on the road against a team that I think is getting better and better. In particular, offensively, they were always really good defensively. But, man, just really proud of a lot of individual players, but obviously it's a team effort, and really pleased with that. The special teams had a huge punt where we flipped the field, changed the field position. Really, so did theirs, and one of the biggest positives was the 99-yard drive that I thought JB was very excellent on in his decision making, and obviously we were able to run the football too with the two backs going over 100 yards. Those are positive defensively. We had a lot of positives. The 5 3 and outs. It's hard for me to fathom how we can do that and then play like we did on some. But truthfully, we've got to have a better plan as coaches for the third and fourth down long plays. We did not have a good plan, and that was the glaring negative defensively. Thought we got a little tired defensively. We didn't run to the football late in the game like we typically have, something that Dom and I spent a lot of time yesterday talking about what it should look like this week for us, because we've really had a first 5 games being all-night games and physical, tough, long games. We're kind of at that point where we got to make sure we're doing what's best for us physically also. Special teams were pretty solid other than the kickoff return. And then we've got to get consistent in the field goal unit. We got a chance to put the game totally away, put it up 17 with 2 minutes or so left. And he's been kicking it well all night. And then the whole technique was totally different. And I've got to help him be the same. But Nick kicked it well all night until that point. Certainly offensively, a negative is we should have put it away ourselves and not depended on the kicker. I could have called some better plays there toward the end when we're trying to milk the clock. But, man, again, just excited that we can sit here after 5 games with another difficult win. And it's not always pretty. But, man, they're finding a way. And I think offensively, I told our guys this morning, if we can just make our bad plays not disaster, where it changes the field, changes possession, where it just means we punt. If we can just stop having our bad ones be a disaster, I think we would be so much better off. And hopefully we can make improvements in that this week. So glad to put Old Dominion in the rearview mirror for 2022 and with a win over there. Got to say to our bus drivers, man, I think they were heroes on this trip. And I wrote them all a letter this morning. Hope they get it this week. But man, that was a hard trip both ways, particularly in that wind and rain on Friday. The closer we got, there's wrecks everywhere, and the buses are swaying, and our guys, I'm sure that was unsettling for them because they carrying valuable cargo. And I don't have many fears in life. I really don't. Maybe for my children. But one fear I've had for 30 years is these night bus trips. I can't shake it. No matter when I was at Lambeth and we had those 10-hour NAIA bus rides, or high school, or even here, you get on that bus at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night and know you've got a 3.5, 4-hour drive. And there's so many people on the road that you can't trust or know. And so I'm just thankful. I don't know how I got on that tangent, but they were heroes on this trip, and they took great care of us and did an awesome job. So anyway, good to put Old Dominion behind us here with a win, and now we get to move on to another road game, another team that, I think we would be favored in. I don't know how all that works, but I tell our kids the truth. I think we should be favored. That means absolutely zero. It means nothing. You have to earn the right to win college football games. They all have players. And I was hoping I would turn the tape on yesterday and feel great, but I don't. I mean, I think Don Brown's one of the better defensive-minded coaches in the history of the game, and they are playing really good defense. They've struggled offensively to score points. I hope that continues. We're going to have to play really well on that side, but defensively, they're not giving up a whole lot. And I see why when I put on the tape. They're very athletic, and boy, do they do a lot of stuff. And we've got our work cut out for us as coaches today as we go through today and tonight, trying to get a plan in place that makes sense against everything that they do. They're ranked in the top 50 in the country defensively, and I've had some really good transfers in to play. So it's got my full attention, and hopefully our players will respond accordingly. But I don't think it's going to be an easy task to walk up there and just walk out with a win. We're going to have to earn it.
What's the biggest difference you've seen in defensively from last year to this year?
It's totally different. I mean, Don Brown, it's legendary at Michigan, Arizona, and other places, and he's brought in his system, and his system's totally different than what they ran. So it's totally different. And then you add to it the transfers they have from Power 5 schools that make an immediate impact. And, he is so multiple. And, I don't know what his plan will be. We'll have to figure that out when we get in the game. But it's odd. It's even. It's an extra hat in the box all the time, it seems. And he's going to force your hand to have to block a lot of different looks.
You brought up, limiting the disaster plays and hopefully ending drives with punts. Leads me to a question about quarterback play. How's Caden doing this morning after that one half? And does that play back into how you prepare for which quarterback you want to start against UMass?
Well, certainly. I mean, I said in our post-game interview that Caden's going to be a really good player. He's young. I think he was. I truthfully think after the first play when he realized, hey, I'm not 100% with my growing, and I can't outrun this guy like I normally do. I really think it played with his mind. He actually told me on the bus ride home, he said, well, after that play, I just was so antsy to get rid of the ball because I didn't think I could maneuver like normal. And it showed, and all his throws were like, some of them 30 yards overthrown, and everything seemed rushed. And I think that it's part of the learning process for him, and we've got to somehow make his bad plays not disaster. We'll have to see how this week goes with him health-wise, obviously. He wants to play, but I want him to be ready to play. And, he had good treatment yesterday and felt better, but, we'll see how the week progresses. But I have confidence in the others that we can win football games with them. JB was really solid in the second half. Nate has not had, a full chance to really see what he would do yet. But I'm confident that we've got to play with who we have, and if Caden's healthy, great. If he's not, then next man up, and let's try to figure out what's the best plan for those guys.
Would you say, would you call it almost like a quarterback by committee? Like, you don't really hear that phrase a lot. And how much more difficult does that make it on you? How can you go about it that way?
Well, that's been our season so far. It's kind of been quarterback by committee. Now, Charlie Brewer, is begging me to let him play this week. And, he ain't even got his cast off yet. But he's going to the doctor this week and hopefully gets the pins out. And I don't I don't know that that's possible. I have no idea, but in his mind it is, and so he's itching to be back. But to this point, it's been it's been quarterback by committee, and some of it's been in the middle of games. Several of them been in the middle of games, which is uncomfortable for a play caller. I have never really experienced a season at quarterback and calling plays quite like this year so far. But man, it's part of the growing process. It's sort of like I told our kids this morning. Football is the game we play. Winning is the business. And when you're growing up, me included, the game was what the scoreboard said, and that was kind of what mattered. And certainly not saying the scoreboard doesn't matter, but I am saying what we become through the game matters more. And I think as we continue to get older, we're constantly evolving to be better at understanding that, hopefully, and maybe being able to handle those moments with a little more grace and humility and wisdom than we did when we were younger. I failed to do that a little bit in the first half the other night. I usually am pretty composed. I was not at halftime. I was not composed at all. I was not, and I wasn't happy with myself for not being composed. But, so it's just, I'm off on a tangent right now, but we have great team meetings on Monday morning where I teach our kids, and we had some good stuff this morning. So I don't know if I answered your question or not.
You bring up 4 quarterbacks, and you have 4 wins, and with the exception of Charlie only being in for 1 or 2 series, the other 3 have contributed to wins. What does that say about, again, how you've been able to identify those players, and want to utilize the scheme to best fit their needs, so that way you can be in the have 4-1 going into week 6?
Yeah. Well, I said back in fall camp, I felt like we had 4 guys that could contribute to the football team, and I think that's proven to be true. I think you got to look at and give credit to Ken Alston also for being able to adjust from week to week and help coach them individually within the game plan that I really decide I like. And so it's a group effort, and but they've all proven to have great value for our team.
Ed Lane's got one online. Ed, go ahead.
Hugh, to go off of what Damian just mentioned a moment ago about the quarterbacks that you guys have played, there's been uncertainty with circumstances determining who's going to play from week to week. What does that say about the culture of your overall program, and particularly the buy-in from your players to not let that rattle them, even when changes have been made multiple times in game?
Well, we take great pride in trying to build a culture that is built on, confidence and composure and grit. And I think, the best test of where your culture is at is, number 1, the locker room, and number 2, how do they respond on the field when things aren't going particularly well. And I would say that we've, based on those 2 criteria, y'all don't see the locker room like I do, but you do see how we perform or respond when we don't particularly play well, or we have disaster plays, or we're playing sloppy. And I think you've been eyewitnesses to 5 games where you would have to say that if you base it on the composure and the components of grit and battle and fight, and that you would have to say that our culture is pretty good.
Good. Emily online.
Coach, so when you're juggling 4 quarterbacks, obviously Charlie's not a part of that right now, and when there's an unhealthy Caden, but let's say Caden is healthy, how do you distribute the reps in practice? Like, what would you say the percentages of reps for practice?
Well, let's base it on the fact that if last week we had 3 quarterbacks that got reps. Caden, we anticipated being the starter. He would get all 4 reps with the rack with the ones. And then we would divide the others' reps with the 2s, which the 2s get equal reps. So we would divide those reps up amongst JB and Nate based on kind of what we thought the packages would be. That would be that case. If we're down to 2, obviously it's pretty easy. One gets 4, the other gets 4, and they'll get equal reps on the day.
Right. Gotcha. Thank you.
You mentioned Charlie. I assume that everything's going pretty well with him.
Well, according to him, he's ready to play. I don't, but he sees the doctor Wednesday, and we'll go from there.
Bring up J.B. Lofton's catch again, number 1 on SportsCenter. What does that do in terms of, I guess, exposure for this program? How's he feeling after that?
I don't know that it does a whole lot for exposure. I mean, you're happy because we're on SportsCenter, and you're happy for Javion. What a phenomenal individual play it was. I don't know that it means a whole lot moving forward. I mean, we challenge them all the time. When you get in one-on-one and our quarterback gives you a catchable ball, you got to compete to make that play, and or to at least make sure if we trust you in a one-on-one. And because I despise overthrows in one-on-ones. I just despise them, and we had way too many of those the other night, and that's why I say Caden was just in too big of a hurry. But we had several one-on-ones that I thought, even some of them, I thought we were winning, and the balls were just uncatchable. And so I like catchable footballs and depend on our receivers to, at worst case, make sure it's incomplete and to fight for it and to win a percentage. JB came in and he threw some catchable ones there to CJ Yarbrough on that long drive, and he was tight coverage. CJ won his one-on-ones, made the catch because it was a catchable ball, and we got a fighting chance then.
Saw Eddie on crutches.
Yeah.
How tough is that for guy?
Man, what sickening feeling you have is somebody that's worked so hard and gotten to a point he's on all 4 special teams and doing a good job for us and gets his scholarship, and he's ruptured his Achilles, so he's going to have to have surgery, and that's a long rehab. So we hate that for him, but like true Eddie, he handled it great.
Hey, now, so you mentioned him. How far has he come? Like we were talking about at the beginning of his career, how far have you seen him come?
Yeah, I didn't think he was any good when I got here. So we got to find us a darn punter, man. This guy can't punt. And now he's, I trust him immensely. He's punting really solid.
Getting back any closer, getting back?
Man. We thought last week he would be, and he went out and tried Tuesday and just said he couldn't. He's got something going on with his lower back to his hip, and we'll see what he feels like tomorrow.
If Braden can't go, do you have anyone behind Nick that you feel?
I ask Tanner that all the time, but he believes Nick can be the best of the group, and the other night, again, I thought he was really solid until the last kick where, again, he's young. He's like Caden at quarterback, and he's a kicker. He's just, I don't know if he's been in enough of those situations just to take the same swing. It's nothing different. You don't have to speed up and hurry. Trust the protection, trust the snap, hold, and knock it through.
Yeah, there's one last one for me. CJ Yarbrough, his best game. Are you seeing him settling more? Because it's not unusual. It's not like a guy that was in the program but hurt and still around it and still going through hot football activities. He wasn't here on us.
Yeah, I think it's taken him this long to get back in the swing of just playing the game. He sat out a long time really doing nothing other than working, which he's a hard worker. This guy's he's something now. He's a different breed. He doesn't mind working at all. He doesn't. I had one of my friends in Mississippi hire the guy to drive a truck down to Mississippi from here, for him because he's got in his mind he has his own trucking business. He's just he doesn't mind work, and Um, it was, I didn't even know he was doing it. And he said, "Oh, yeah, I've been hired by this guy down there. I'm going to take his furniture down there to him." And I said, "Who is the guy?" And I said, "Oh, my gosh." But so he's working at it, and love his leadership. He's on our culture council, and I think he's just starting to get back into the real football shape and playing the game.
We don't talk about long snappers much, but what is Austin Mock?
We should. I mean, Austin Mock, we take for granted how consistent he is and just steady. And, man, that's valuable. He's been, we're going to miss him when he leaves for sure.
Talking about their defense, and you were able to really feature your running backs the other night. It seemed like those guys really come on. What do they do specifically in the run game that could be a problem?
It's real simple. They try to take the run game away from them, period. They're going to have an extra hat that you don't have enough people to block them. And they're going to try to make you. Seems like he's kind of the old school, like some of my uncles who were football coaches were, and my dad. Is a lot of bad things can happen when you throw it. And, I mean, he wants you to have to throw the football to win the game.
What scares you about it? Because it looks like, I know you guys have been forcing a lot of turnovers this year, but they had 10 takeaways as well. We got 8 sacks through 5 games. What is it? All 3 phases of that unit that's been working in unison to at least keep them competitive?
Yeah, I think they're a really good defense. They're so multiple, so many different looks, so many different pressures. And it's just, it's not easy to prepare for on a short week. And, you're going to make some mistakes. You're going to identify it wrong, and our guys are going to block the wrong people at some point, and they're going to have an extra guy, and it can make you look really bad. And it can cause sacks, and it can cause turnovers.
Thinking of that offensive line, how they grade out.
Again, man, if you take away about 4 plays from them, really, really good. But the 4 were awful. They weren't just a sack. It was like the one right before half. It's a total MA whiff, whatever you want to call it. And we have an extra shot on that wheel right tomorrow. It's going to be on top. Worst case, it's incomplete. We kick the field goal. And, we turn a guy scot-free, and it causes an interception. That wasn't Caden's fault. He can't see that coming. And that's the stuff I'm talking about. It's not just a bad play. It's disaster. And that's the way the 4 really were. That other than those, it was pretty dang solid. They picked up a lot of good movements, creased them on a lot of good runs. So it was a solid effort. We just got to eliminate these really bad ones.
I'm not going to ask specifics, and you may not want to answer it anyway. It's just with the pressure that they brought. Did you guys do anything at that point to change up protections or anything on the O-line, or did they just do a better job picking it up?
Yeah, I don't know, man. We just block our protections.
Okay.
But yeah, we're constantly trying to change and get into better protections.
Oh, yeah.
Appreciate it. All right, guys. Nobody online?
Well, good job. They're all good.
You got that right. There's no doubt, man. On the defensive staff wasn't real happy with me, nor was I real happy with some of our play in critical downs. But in the locker room, I said, listen, we'll get it fixed tomorrow. I'm not happy with what we did on these critical 3rd and 4th downs. But it sure is a lot better to fix them when you won the game. And so there's no question. You're right, man. Our kids are finding a way to win some difficult battles, and it's a lot easier. A lot more fun anyway to try to correct things with a win.
Thank you, sir.